Hey guys, this is John, and welcome to the first Climbing the Bot Ladder video. So this will be just like climbing the rating ladder, except I'm playing bots on chessverse. Chessverse is the site that I joined recently as an owner. I had an announcement video about it that I released about 2 weeks ago. Thank you so much for all of you who checked out the site and signed up, even became premium members. We truly appreciate it. We've had a ton of support and feedback. We're very happy about the response that we've received. And for those who didn't watch that announcement video, I can just give you the rundown very quickly about what Chessiverse is. This is a site where you can play against over 500 human-like chess bots. Okay, so bots that play like humans, and they all have individual characteristics, and they each have their own rating as well. So we're building out a number of other resources related to chess learning and integrating the bots where appropriate. We have a community of chess improvers on our Discord. So we're planning some exciting stuff, especially in the next month or so that I'm going to be filling you guys in on. But yeah, go ahead and create an account on Chessiverse if that sounds interesting to you, and just play some of the bots and try it out for yourself. So my rating is in the mid 1900s. As I've mentioned, I tend to play my games against the bots at blitz pace, and that's where my rating has fallen after 238 games. So today, I think I'm going to play a bot in the 1700-ish range. And I'm going to play, instead of my unlimited time control, I'm going to play actually a 10-minute game, which I have not played against the bots so far. So let's change the time control to 10 minutes. Let's go into our bot exploration page. We can filter the bots. You can actually filter by opening the country they're from, because each bot has a flag assigned to them. You can see which bots you've defeated and whatnot. There's a way to favorite bots as well. But let's just narrow our rating range a little bit. I don't know, get it somewhere in the 1700 to 2000-ish range. And let's see who looks interesting to play. Yeah, and playing the bots, it really brings me back to a video some of you may have seen on my channel called My First Chess Opponent, where I played my old tabletop chess computer that I had when I was a kid that had 72 levels. And yeah, playing bots on Chessiverse really reminds me of that. Okay, so let's, how about Ross Reef? What does Ross Reef's playing style look like? Okay, he's pretty good at openings. So here you can kind of see the breakdown of each player. So good at openings, a versatile player though, who blends safe and aggressive openings, maintaining accuracy with rare blunders, struggles in endgames, but excels at strategic planning and tactical maneuvers. Okay, so I like endgames, and it might be useful for me to play against someone who not only has strategy, but also, can calculate and likes tactical play where appropriate. Let's check out his opening repertoire real quick. Italian game, Sicilian defense. Okay, so clearly an e4 player. Is black, likes Petrov actually. Wonder if he's a Stafford Gambit player. Queen's pawn. Okay. All right. Let's give this player a shot. Ross Reef, let's do it. Rated 1761. Here we go. He gets the white pieces. Starts with e4. Okay, so I play Scandi a lot, but let's see what he does in the Sicilian. Okay, plays the Bowdler attack. It's actually a very popular line at amateur level. So these bots are all trained on the Lichess database of human games. So that's why they have these human-like characteristics. So d3 defends the pawn. Now, I can advance d5, but I sometimes like to work up to that. So let's play a6. Oh, and actually let me scroll down ever so slightly, just so you guys can see my time as well. Yeah, so a6, I found it's useful just to control the b5 square in these situations. So, okay, bishop e7. See if I can make Ross think a little bit. And this is one thing the bots will do. So sometimes they'll play right away, especially in some openings, or if the decision is absolutely forced or very easy. But they will take their time too. And that's important when you're playing against humans. And I think that capability, by the way, the time management from the bots is going to get better and better as our site develops. So plays bishop b3, sort of a prophylactic move, it seems to me. But I'm not going to read too far into that. I mean, I could go after the bishop when I like, but I just want to get castled for the time being. Oh yeah, you see my admin controls too. So as a co-owner of the site, I'm able to dictate the result if I want by clicking on one of these, but we're not going to do that. Okay, c3. I'm actually wondering if I should have played knight a5 on the previous move, but everything looks just fine still. I can play b5, maybe fianchetto the bishop. I can go for the d5 move. Yeah, let's actually go for the d5 move. I'm curious if Ross is going to take or push, or maybe keep the tension. Decides to keep the tension. Okay, plays knight bd2. What if I ask his plans in terms of this bishop on g5? What if I ask what he intends to do with that bishop? Takes on f6. Okay. So it gives up the bishop pair. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of that. I would have probably retreated bishop h4 or maybe bishop f4 myself. A lot of amateur players do give up the bishop pair too easily. They give it up without a fight or real consideration as to why they might want to keep that bishop pair. So rook e1, I'm not all that concerned about e5, so I'm just going to try to get my bishop on the queen side fianchettoed to b7. Yeah, a4, undermining the pawns. Okay, so if I play bishop b7 and we get a series of trades, it'll be important that I take with the bishop at the end so I can keep d5 defended. So a4 I think is a logical move, but unless I've miscalculated the move order, I think bishop b7 just keeps everything together. Let's pre-move this capture. A takes b5. Maybe Ross will keep the tension, but A takes b5 would be natural. Okay, keeps the tension again. So similar to knight bd2 earlier, plays, dare I say, a bit of a defensive move, bishop c2. Now I'm wondering if I should take the opportunity to play b4 and press up against these pawns on c3 and b2. I'm kind of liking that. I mean, white can still play e5, but given that he passed up on A takes b5, I kind of don't want to give him that opportunity again. I'm going to go ahead and play b4. Ooh, an instant e5 in response. Okay, so bishop e7 is my default move here. I could also trade. There's maybe a bit to calculate there, but I think I'm leaning towards bishop e7, unless I really want to rule out c4. So if I take c3, Ross takes on f6, I take on d2. He can't keep the capture sequence going because he loses too much material. So the question comes down to, do I prefer to open the B file? Maybe I actually do prefer to open the B file. Because if bishop e7, c4, yeah, then I can't really get through on the queen side, can I? Okay, so I've changed my mind. Let's take on c3. Let's go ahead and do that. And he does take back. And now I'm going to pull the bishop back. And I like the fact that I have this B file to work with. I mean, white may jump on that file first, but I have the two bishops. White looks a little cramped. I've got more space in the center with these two pawns, so let's try to take advantage of that somehow. Okay, so attacks the bishop, makes sense. Rook b8. It's also knight a5, but rook b8 looks more flexible. Let's do it. Maybe I can consider queen a5 in some instance. He plays d4. Okay, so options again. I could take the pawn and then maybe jump into b4, try to get the other bishop. I'm liking the look of c4 though, too, guys. c4 and just this slow grind, but part of me wants to take as well because, like I said earlier, I've got the two bishops. So take, push. I could keep the tension. Wonder if I got to watch out for queen d3 somewhere. Taking might be the thing to do. Taking a knight b4. Excuse me. Big sneeze. Yeah, okay, I'm going to take. Yeah, and then send the knight in. See if I can get this other bishop. I'm curious if he's going to give the bishop up or play bishop b3 and make me work for it more. I probably wouldn't be unhappy to see bishop b3, though, because I think my knight is fairly annoying up in his grill like that. Please do let us know if you have feedback on playing the bots. Like, how does it feel? Even if you maybe aren't interested in the design of the site, I know AI chess bots. I totally understand if someone's perhaps not into that or has a knee-jerk reaction to that. But I would really appreciate it if you keep an open mind. If you like my content, you guys know I don't promote stuff hardly ever. I only promote services, products, things that really align with my values. And this site and this community and the founders of Chessverse align with my values. So please do give us a shot if you're on the fence or maybe had some initial reaction to playing bots, AI, whatever. Maybe playing a few games might change your mind. And if not, that's fine too. Okay, knight f1. So I can take the bishop pair. I can go queen a5. It's nice that I don't have to worry about queen d3 and a checkmate on h7. So I think for me, it comes down to taking, maybe rook c8 is worth consideration too. Perhaps taking on c2 does let white off a little easy. But taking on c2, queen a5 with rook fc8 on the way looks really appetizing. I think my bishops are kind of feasting there. I'm going to go for that. Just going to grab the bishop pair, play queen a5 with the idea of rook fc8, inviting all the pieces to the party. Yeah, I mean, white's massing the pieces on that side of the board too. Queen c7 could be a thing. a4 is a little fragile. There's bishop a3 I could consider. But then maybe queen c7 anyways. Okay, let's go with rook fc8. Am I blundering anything with rook takes b7? Rook takes b7. Rook takes c2. Rook takes b8 check. Ooh, yeah, actually, rook fc8, rook takes b7 is clever. Because if I take back with the rook, my rook is undefended. So maybe I should use the b rook in this instance. Interesting. I very nearly blundered rook fc8, rook takes b7. But I'm thinking now rook b to c8 is more accurate. Let's play that. Attack with this rook. So hit the queen. Queen d3 played. Okay, it leaves the a pawn tender, but with the weakness of the bishop, I can't take it yet. However, okay, let's calculate. So I could trade on c1 and play queen takes a4, but then rook c7 forks the two bishops. Careful, careful. You know what I might do here? I might trade on c1 and then play rook c8 and just try to trade another pair of rooks. I like that path because I'm not worried about white's knights, but I want to get rid of any counterplay towards my back rank, 7th, the 8th rank. And I think this a pawn is probably going to drop at some point soon. So yeah, let's go takes and rook c8. Oh, as usual, I'm way down on the clock, so let's speed up as well. Also quite typical for climbing the rating ladder video, right? And let's see if Ross agrees to the trade. I mean, he might play rook a1, but then I like my chances in the endgame. Queen c3, maybe rook c3. Okay, he agrees to the trade, which I'm happy to see. Attacks the bishop. Yeah, let's go bishop d7. And I think I'm going to win that pawn next. I'm going to capture that pawn on a4. All right, he might be looking for something on the back rank, but I don't see any obstacles here. Queen's even defending the bishop. If check, I'll just play bishop f8. And the plan is to run the a pawn, guys. Simple as that. I feel especially without white's knight on f1 being more active, that I'm sitting quite pretty here. But let's keep finding accurate moves. So bishop b5 I feel is nice. Attacks the knight. Ooh. And I believe white just blundered back rank mate. Not queen d1, but queen a1. Yeah, queen a1, and then all white can do is just block with something. Unfortunate, but yeah, Ross Reef saw the attack on the knight, didn't respond to it correctly. There we go. And actually lets me play till checkmate. Sometimes they resign before checkmate, but actually let me play there. Okay, so we take down Ross Reef, rated 1761. Gained a few rating points. Yeah, so interesting game. A little anticlimactic in the ending, but I was liking how this was shaping up. I think even if White had played something, like knight f to d2, it's actually already pretty tough for White here because queen d1, queen a1. The attack on the knight is annoying, and White's queen is adrift, to use a pun based on Ross's name. But why don't we take a quick look at that? We'll analyze, and I'm actually going to switch to Lichess real quick. We're building out our full analysis suite on Chessverse, but for now, it's easier to use Lichess. Fantastic site. We're all big fans of Lichess, so let's load this game into Lichess, and we'll see based on the PGN that I put in there where Ross or myself could have improved. Okay, and here we are. I uploaded the game on Lichess. So let's just look at the graph real quick. Pretty smooth game from my perspective. Yeah, this looks like a game I might play against human. This is our goal with the bots. But yeah, gently sloping advantage in Black's favor, eventually becoming a decisive advantage. 3 inaccuracies, 0 mistakes, 1 blunder. That's surely 93 at the end by Ross Reef. 1 inaccuracy for me, and 12 average centipawn loss compared to 44. So pretty clean game on my end. Let's walk through the moves. Yeah, so this is the Bowdler attack. Those of you who played the Sicilian will definitely have encountered this if you've played, any number of Sicilian games online, really. Super common move. I would say at this rating level, and by the way, these ratings are probably most closely correlated to Lichess ratings right now. Although they are, Chessverse ratings, we're trying to develop them on platform, so we can't, claim that they're going to match 1-to-1 with any rating system on any site or over the board. But we do hope over time Chessverse ratings are fairly representative of ratings you can get out in the wild, both online and over the board. And I think they will be as we get more and more data and feedback. But yeah, in the mid 1700s, I think you're going to see bishop c4 on move 2 or some variation of that a little less often. Still crops up occasionally, though. So I guess Ross Reef does like the Italian game, which is this opening. The bishop coming to c4 on move 3 in the symmetrical king pawn. So maybe not a shock that he likes the Bowdler attack as well. So I prefer just to block that bishop right away. This is especially handy with the bishop on c4. A lot of Sicilian players, they end up playing e5 and c5. They perhaps over-index on this clamp that they can get on the d4 square. But personally, I never really liked that structure because you're allowing this bishop to have unrestricted, unfettered access to f7, and you're especially weakening the d5 square. Okay, so even if there's no immediate issue with bishop takes f7 or some attack on that square, you really got to think twice about whether you want to permanently weaken d5. Black has no pawn that can go backwards to e6 or c6 and help control the d5 square. So it's a big decision. So it's usually good to play e6 against bishop c4. Blunt that bishop. Make sure it's looking right into a stone wall here. And if you want, you can work up to d5 later. So, okay, we play some developing moves. Yeah, I don't like to rush d5. A lot of players do play this way, but it may not be the best if you're a little underdeveloped like Black is. There's no pieces in the game other than the pawns. So I do think it makes sense to develop at least a knight or two first before you consider playing d5. So I do that. I play knight f6 and attack the pawn. I know in the past, students and viewers have asked about e5 here, advancing and attacking the knight. And I believe the engine actually likes d5 in reply. You can toss the engine on. Yeah, d5 is one of the moves. So you can counterattack the bishop on c4. But you can also think about knight g4 and swarming the pawn on e5. Because white might defend, but you have ways you can attack it further. It starts to look a little overextended for white. And you can also, if you want, just play to exchange it if white insists on defending it. And black already looks pretty active here, in my mind. Knight can pivot back to e5 if needed. Good position for black. So don't be afraid of e5 if white advances. There's center fork tricks in the air as well, so you can see if white plays rook e1 or knight c3. It's a good idea for black to at least think about playing knight takes e4, eliminating white's central pawn. And then on knight takes e4, the idea is you have d5, you're going to win the piece back. And black's play in the center is more mature than white's, even if white's a little ahead in development piecewise, because black already has a couple pawns up here, whereas white only had that one pawn, which was eliminated. So that's another theme that black can keep in mind in these Sicilian Bowdler positions. But Ross played d3, defending the pawn, so now the center fork tricks don't work. So I just continued waiting, a6. He played bishop g5. Aggressive move, makes some sense. It puts e5 more so on the agenda, trying to use this pin, although I think even there, black would have some outs. One trap I'll show you, which you should definitely be aware of. So let's just say white plays knight c3 here, and black plays bishop e7, and then white plays bishop d3, bishop e3, I should say. Okay, black to move. If you don't know the move here that wins material for black, this is going to be helpful for you. So black to move, what should black do? Pause your video if you like while I sip my coffee. Okay, so black wins a piece with d5. This is an especially good time to advance d5. With tempo on the bishop, we have enough defenders in the case of a trade. We always have to account for attackers and defenders in a situation like this, where you're advancing into a highly contested point. But we have enough defenders, 2 defenders, 2 attackers. White would lose a piece if they took the d5 pawn. So stands to reason white will play bishop b3, but this is the point. Black gets d4 in next and forks the bishop on e3 and the knight on c3. And this is such a common pattern in the Bowdler that I wanted to show it to you guys, even though this didn't come up in the game. d5, specifically remember this cluster of pieces. White bishop on c4, white knight on c3, white bishop on e3. That creates the springboard for d5, d4. Allows black to advance with tempo and guarantee the win of a piece. If you only have 1 or 2 of those pieces in place on these squares, for white, d5 could still make sense, just in general, but it's especially good if you get d5, d4 in. There's some circumstances too, like if black hadn't played knight c6 and also hadn't played a6, white could get out of this by playing bishop b5 check, but we've laid some nice groundwork here to ensure that white can't do that. So keep that one in mind. But, okay, Ross plays bishop g5, which the engine says is a bit of a mistake, and I believe that because I don't think the bishop really has a future in exchanging itself for black's bishop. Yeah, I guess the engine says I can go ahead and play h6, and it already likes black a little bit. If white wants to keep the bishop, they have to retreat, and the computer at least thinks that's a slight concession. Nevertheless, so coming up, yeah, bishop b3 probably doesn't do a whole lot for white, although in hindsight, I maybe should have considered knight a5. Yes, the computer thinks e5 is good there. But I think coming up, the mistake that black made, which is common, you see it a lot at human level, was giving the dark square bishop for the knight too easily. So I went ahead and advanced d5. e5 was possible from white, attacking my knight. I probably would have played knight d7 here and then played kind of a French type position where hopefully my play against the e5 pawn and maybe the ability to expand on the queen side is kind of nice. Maybe that was the better way for white to handle this. But yeah, I think especially after h6, I'm just not a big fan of bishop takes f6. I think that gives the bishop pair without a unnecessary fight. Bishop h4 or bishop f4 even, more tenacious. So yeah, I would recommend playing bishop h4 in a situation like this. But a lot of people, and that's why you play moves like h6 is one of the reasons you do it against humans and human-like bots, is a lot of people just give the bishop pair without thinking about it. But we should tend to prefer bishops a bit more than knights, all else being equal. In a faster time control like bullet, okay, you can make an argument, and I think it's actually true. It's easier and advantageous even to handle the knights and have the knights versus the bishops. Knights are just trickier pieces. But the longer the time control, the more serious the game, the more the bishops should be valued ever so slightly. And to the point where traditional engine programmers actually weight the bishops a little more heavily than the knights in their algorithms, because it's just been born out of millions and millions of games that bishops do a little bit better than knights overall in chess. Quarter pawn or something like that. So that's basically what's being reflected here. But white's playing pretty solid here overall. I went ahead and played b5. Ross played a4. Yeah, computer's not a huge fan of a4, but I think it makes some sense. But given that I can take care of the queen side, maybe opening the queen side in general just isn't in white's best interest. Though it does say I should meet a4 with b4. It does like that right away, which actually, given the game continuation, makes sense. I don't know why I didn't consider b4 so much here. But yeah, I definitely should have, because that's very much in line with what I was going for. And then a bishop e7, I can do the same thing. This is probably a better version because I didn't commit to bishop b7 yet, and white's bishop is probably even more of a target. Yeah, in fact, it wants white to voluntarily play bishop c2, maybe before I do rook b8 or knight a5. So I think that could even be considered a slight mistake by me, playing bishop b7. Even though the computer still slightly favors my position, I think I should have looked at b4 and probably have played that move. Start gouging at that white queen side. Use the bishop on the long diagonal. But okay, bishop e7, and then bishop c2. So the line I mentioned is if white trades and then trades rooks, it's important I take with the bishop instead of the queen, because queen takes allows white to win a pawn, like so. So I was ready for this line of play where I keep my queen defending the pawn on d5. And then from here, if nothing changed, I would still look for something to do on the queen side. Maybe c4 or b4, or perhaps coordinate a little bit more. Black should be a little bit better here. I've got more space. These pawns are oppressive. Bit of an advantage for black. But on bishop c2, I didn't miss my second chance to play b4. So I'm glad I played this move. Attacking the pawn. Awkward for white to defend. And I can see why white wouldn't want to take. This looks unpleasant. I'm very active here. So Ross correctly plays e5. And then I correctly take on c3. And he took back on c3, but I did mention this line where we got to look at these in-between captures. If you're playing white in this situation, you definitely cannot blindly play f takes g7, just hoping that the first one to play another capture in the sequence is going to have the advantage. That's how you get hurt real quick in chess. Because I'm taking on e1 here with check. White's going to have to respond to that. They don't have time to take my rook. You got to respond to a check on your king somehow. And when the dust settles here, we've seen that black has won a piece. Have an extra rook. And also an extra pawn, right? No, pawns are even. 6 pawns each. So extra rook. So don't burn yourself by just assuming that capture sequences are going to work out for you because you're the first one to capture, or even the second one to capture. I guess in this case, white would be the second one. But if they're just optimistically, you know, capturing down the row like checkers or something, you're in for a rough time. You're going to lose a lot of games that way. So had this occurred, this sequence, white would have to pause and capture on d2. But I would have been very happy to play this position. So this also, actually, in this case, I do win a pawn. Yeah. As I capture the first pawn, then I get the piece back. White only takes one of my pawns in return, but I'm basically getting 2 for 1, and we both traded a piece. So that's why this is such a great advantage for black. Strategically, black looks good here too. I think even if white had a pawn, I don't know, on c3, I might slightly take black, but with black being up a pawn, it's a no-brainer. So Ross correctly took back. I played bishop e7. Got to save the bishop now. Rook b1 made sense, hitting the bishop. Rook b8 defending. Yeah, and then d4 connecting the pawns. I think these are all pretty natural. Yeah, and I paused here a little bit, just deciding if I wanted to take or push. Looks like I made the right call. And c4 is kind of tempting, grabbing space, pushing into the position, but I just kind of felt with the 2 bishops I should open the position, and that appears to be the right call. And in fact, the engine really dislikes c4. And I can see now it's going to make life miserable for my light square bishop in particular. I think I only would have done this if I was very confident I could attack the pawn on c3, but that's probably not forthcoming. And yeah, I do pretty significantly shut down my queenside pieces, especially the light square bishop and the knight. So this looked good, opened the position. I briefly thought about knight takes d4, but it doesn't look so natural. Computer likes it much more though. So that's interesting. Even breaking up the structure. But yeah, maybe it likes it because it kind of clears out the king side a bit. That knight on f3 never really did much for white in this game. So here, and now I went hunting for that light square bishop, using my dark square bishop as protection. There are no safe squares on this diagonal for that light square bishop. So I thought maybe Ross would play bishop b3 here. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to play. Maybe queen a5, try to get the rook over again. That looks natural to me. Yeah, I suppose a5 also makes sense. Even further stabilizing the knight. Bishop a6, rook c8, probably try to play down the file. This also looks extremely comfortable for black. White's pieces aren't very threatening. There's no issues towards my king, especially when white doesn't have a light square bishop plus queen battery staring at me. So yeah, I'm making inroads here, especially on the queen side where I want to play. So knight f1 was played, and then I took. Yeah, part of me wasn't sure if I should take right away, but it just looks straightforward to do this and then play queen a5. Again, according to the computer, not the only move, but now we're solidly in clear advantage territory for black. So rook here, and here's where I almost blundered. So I was really considering rook fc8, and yes, that would have been a big time blunder. You know, it'd be cool if we can build on chessverse a feature to see, like when I used to play poker, they had the, some sites had like a rabbit chasing feature where you could actually, like, let's say you're playing a hand and some person folds in the hand and someone wins the pot. You could actually rabbit chase, meaning you could see the next card that would occur if the hand had continued. So I wonder if we could build something like that in for the bots, where I'd be curious if Ross Reef would play rook takes b7 here, which is the move I happen to notice. It's a deflection move. If rook takes b7, queen takes c8 check, winning the house. And if rook takes c2, rook takes b8, another in-between move. And when all is said and done, white has won a rook and 2 minor pieces against the queen. Should be winning for white. So, yeah, I wonder if Ross would have seen that. But I noticed at the last moment that was possible. So rook b to c8 instead. Queen moved. Yeah, queen b3 looks more tenacious, doesn't it? Because that hits the bishop, but importantly, it defends the pawn. So it still looks nice for me on bishop c6, pile up on the a pawn. That's pretty much my main plan here, is try to win the a pawn and also trade down if needed. But queen b3, I think, was more tenacious. White played queen d3 instead, so I traded. Oh, and actually I could have just taken this pawn. Oh, no, but I mentioned this, right? I thought I was running into rook c7. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I did mention this in the game. I did not notice that queen b4 actually holds both of the bishops. That escaped my attention. That's a nice move. Optically, this looks dangerous. And I can understand why I stopped calculating after seeing rook c7. We always got to watch those undefended pieces. Check out Chess Fundamentals #1 in my playlist, by the way, if you don't know what I mean. But yeah, queen b4 is a nice way to hold. Then I'm probably stabilizing. Because white has a hard time creating further resources to cause me problems here. Wow. Okay, so nice nuance there that this was actually possible. But I played rook c8. Yeah, and I think if I was playing white here, it's not a happy move to make, but I think I would have played rook a1 to not only avoid the rook trade, but most importantly, make it harder for black to win the a pawn. And if white had done that, I probably would have started either trying to lay siege to the a pawn, or I think I mentioned queen c3 as a move that looked attractive to me. Try to take it to an endgame and maybe slowly look to win that pawn. Maybe bishop c6, rook a3, rook c4. I have to manage some counterplay if white ever wants to try to get something going towards my back rank. But with white's knights being so far away from the action, the bishop's feasting in the direction of the queen side, and that a pawn remaining weak, I think black should be close to winning here. Probably should win the game. But what I was hoping happened actually did happen. Ross took the rook on c8, we traded, and now I think that a pawn is simply doomed. Even if white defends it, which I think white did. Yeah, Ross played queen c2, defending, hitting the bishop. After bishop d7, everything is coming up nicely here. There's no queen infiltration even. I cover all the squares. And even as played in the game, which I think is something a human would do, like white was looking for counterplay, but I'm just so solid. Yeah, everything defended. Notice how the pawn on h6 gives us even more breathing room and stops knight g5. Just good to have those little moves thrown in. So when I played h6, if you recall, it was to attack the white bishop on g5. But you can see the effect of a move like that, like a single pawn move around your king. Very handy most of the time when you've castled in one direction. That rules out a lot of white counterplay. Yep, and now the blunder at the end, but you can see this is losing for white. But I would argue knight e3, that is a pretty human blunder. Yeah, I can understand why white made that move, why the bot played knight e3. Because for a long time, white's been struggling to do anything with these knights. They really haven't been a factor. The knight is now under attack, and moves like queen d1, queen a1 are in the picture. So, hey, we've all made mistakes like this. It's easy to forget that, oh, there's actually a checkmate on the back rank. But yeah, even if white had found some way to try to hold on, it looks very difficult. Like even this move I think I was alluding to, I see now it loses the d pawn. So hard to keep this together for white. And also there's the big problem with the a pawn that's about to run soon too. a5, move the queen, a4. My bishops and queen can practically just escort that pawn up the board. The knights have a really tough time stopping a pawn, a distant pass pawn in general. Okay. Yeah, and then this was the conclusion. All right. Well, thanks to Ross Reef for the game. I'm used to thanking my opponents, so let's thank the bot. Hope you guys found this interesting. Let me know if you have any questions about chessverse or the bots. Please do check the site out if you haven't already. We would love your feedback. Create a free account and just try it out. And I'll remind you, once again, we have a very active Discord. So if you want to hop in the chessverse Discord, talk chess improvement, give us feedback there or ask any questions there. I know I'm constantly monitoring that Discord, as is our small team. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you again soon in the next Climbing the Bot Ladder video. Bye. Oh, before we do that, let's switch back to chessverse so I can give you the proper chessverse view. So final thing, in the announcement video, people were requesting or wondering if you could play from custom positions. I thought I'd just take this moment to show you that too. So if you go under practice, you can practice from a variety of openings. So if you want to practice, I don't know, Dutch defense, you can choose that opening and decide which sub-variation you want to play. And go ahead and play it against the bots. You can also select what type of opponent you want to play against too. So easy, customizable training here on Chessverse. You can train any position, any opening to your heart's content. Also, we have a puzzles feature too. So if you want to drill puzzles, you can do that very easily on our site as well. Let me just resign the practice game so I can show you a puzzle. And the puzzles are presented by the bots. So here's Bjorn en passant. I'm going to checkmate on the back rank. All right. Thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.